Alright, Ag Scepter. In general, this is pretty much you either get it or you don't. Like, it's either amazing on your hero or it doesn't, or the upgrade's bad and it's not worth getting. The only reason I mention it is because it's worth understanding the stats on it suck. Like, for the cost, the stats are not good. You might not realize it initially because it doesn't have a recipe, but the stats are just not good for how much it costs. Which is important for my favorite hero, Night Stalker. It pretty much means that if you're not making use of the fact that you have great vision, it's a bad choice, okay? So, it's a utility item. It's going to help your team with vision. So if you have a person who's going mid-Night Stalker like myself, this is a bad choice. Most of the time, it's going to lead to like a losing play. You want to get damage. If you're going to decide to do a mid item, which is an essential difference between the different ways the different lanes itemize, right? Most of the heroes that get Ags get some enormously large upgrade to their offensive potential, meaning they can kill more people and maybe they can farm faster too, like Tidehunter, for example. Night Stalker doesn't get any ability to fight better. If you are in a core position, for the first like 15,000 gold you spend, most of it should be allowing you to farm faster. So it should be offensive stuff. Okay? So Ag Scepter, not a great choice. You know, like take Lifesteal for example. You are gonna be wanting Armlet, you're gonna be wanting Echo Saber, you're gonna be wanting Deso. Everything you get in items is accelerating your next item because it's allowing you to kill creeps faster, to move through stuff. That's just gonna mean if you don't do that, you just fall behind over time. And if you do that, you don't fall behind. You might even get ahead. You know, this is so important because if you are getting only fighting items and no farming items, then you feel forced to make plays. You feel like, oh, we have to be fighting. We have to be pushing this tower, even if it's like strategically disadvantageous to push that tower. You're gonna feel pressure to push it anyways because all of your items are for fighting. Classic example here is Black King. Okay, Hand of Midas. This is a classic question, and this one's important because this is one of the things that changes easily between patches. Even minor adjustments to how much gold creeps give, how much gold heroes give, how much income you get per second passively will make Hand of Midas go in and out of the meta instantly. Fun fact, the MLG Columbus done a few years ago, there was a meta of every hero built Hand of Midas. They didn't even change Hand of Midas, they just made it so you got slightly more income per second, which made that you could get the Hand of Midas very quick. Suddenly, that tournament sucked because every player was getting Hand of Midas by the end of it. Okay. Now, this version is balanced, so how do you decide to get it? First of all, it's worth noting that it's rarely worth getting on a carry player, okay? Even though in the past, years ago, it might have been worth getting if you had like a free farm anti-mage lane, you could get that first, then Battle Fury, something like that. Rarely worth doing these days. Now we have to look at this. You're going 2,000 gold out of your way, and you're getting the ability to get gold income. So you're gonna be, it's this item that gives you a gold deficit at first, then you catch up with the gold. So the way to decide if it's worth it or not is basically two major things. How much of a gold deficit are you at? So on some heroes, this 2,000 gold is going to be a 2,000 gold deficit. Darkseer, for example, doesn't use the attack speed at all. Totally worthless. A hero like Slardar, actually attack speed's very nice on that hero. So maybe it's more like you're at a, I don't know, you know, the Hand of Midas, or the Gloves of Haste is 20 attack speed, so you could call this 30 attack speed, maybe 600, 700 worth. So maybe it's more like you're at a 1,300 gold deficit. Heroes like Spearbreaker can really use the attack speed, you know, very useful. So you have to factor that in, and then you have to factor in how much does your team suffer if you are down that much gold, okay? So as an anti-mage, if you're behind 1,300 gold on an anti-mage, it's a big deal. If you're behind 1,300 gold on a Spearbreaker, not such a big deal. If you're behind 1,300 gold on a Visage or something, like, these aren't quite as important because, you know, these are kind of heroes that are not core positions. So if you're underfarmed, it's okay for a while. The other thing to factor in is how well does your hero do neutral creeps. If your hero does neutral creeps very well, then pretty much any item is going to give you the ability to get more income. So like Anti-Mage, as an example, does very well. Does neutral creeps great. Like an amazing neutral creeper. Hand of Midas actually slows down his neutral creeping. You know, he could have a faster Battle Fury. He's going to actually get less income with Hand of Midas. So it's like totally not worth it. All right. Versus a hero like Spirit Breaker, Slardar, not super great at neutral creeps. So this actually will increase, like the attack speed will even increase their ability to get income, as well as obviously the income from the active ability. So, to sum up, to be a good Hand of Midas candidate, you have to be able to, your team has to be okay with you down a bunch of gold temporarily, and you ideally should make decent use out of the attack speed. Okay? That's what makes it more likely to be a good item choice. Alright? Sometimes it's a good item choice. Obviously, the next thing is, if the game ends up going for 70 minutes, it's a very good item choice. You can't always predict that. So you have to use the first couple things that I mentioned. So, Black King Bar. You know, classic question. You're on a hero like Luna. When do you get Black King Bar? Okay? So, Black King Bar is gonna, it gives you, the stats on it are not good, right? 10 strength, 24 damage for 4k, not great. You could get a lot better stats from other things. So, when do you get it? Now, the problem with it is, whenever you get it, because the stats on it are so ineffective, it means that you, compared to someone who got a stat efficient item, say someone, let's say it's a Luna, and the question is to go BKB first or Butterfly. Butterfly obviously is 2,000 gold more, but still. The player who's got the Butterfly, after they get the Butterfly, are going to be able to, you know, keep farming even faster. Let's say that, you know, you got the Manta first, like every Luna. What's the next item, you know? Whereas this BKB is going to allow her to go into a battle and become magic immune, so she's going to be able to put out damage without the opponent having a very good counterplay. Now, the thing is, as soon as you get a Black King Bar, it's so cost inefficient that if you don't fight with it, then the opponent is just going to get ahead of you just over time, because their items are more stat efficient. So that's why you'll see certain carry players actually get BKB super late or never, because the theory is that if you get these stat efficient items, you can actually just get so far ahead in terms of farm that you can fight anyways. So like one player might have the Black King Bar versus a carry player playing super far ahead would have maybe Butterfly and Manta and Saint Jin Yasha. They have such a huge farm advantage that you still can't fight this Luna just because her stats are so huge. Okay, that's like a certain playstyle that exists. Understand that getting to BKB pretty much does bully you or push you into a team fighting, I don't know, spot. So if you get BKB, you generally want it to be after you've gotten enough items that you can reasonably farm on your hero without feeling like bad if you know, are forced to not fight. Sometimes, let's say you get a BKB and you want to go push 5 with your team. Your allies don't always do that with you. They sometimes don't agree, and so then you are either forced to push by yourself in a tower and you just die, or, you know, you take a bad fight, or you just farm and you get more behind. So keep that in mind anytime you purchase BKB. Understand what it does and what it doesn't. Okay, on a related note, utility items, right? Utility items are for support. Pretty much anything in this like support category there. These are for a support or offlaner, similar to the BKB, where they are not. It's not quite the same because those heroes are generally not as expected to go to the fight and go to get creep kills and stuff. So it's okay if they lose the ability to get CS quickly. But these items, well, you know, Iron Talon not so much, but like Guardian Greaves, Pipe of Insight, Vladimir's Mech, these are all gonna let you team fight very well. Medallion, Force Staff too. These are just gonna add a lot to your team fight abilities. They allow you to make plays, make counter plays, you know, adjust things in battle, you know, health, heal people, move people around, give you barriers, whatever. But they just plain and simple don't let you flash farm. So these are items that you're going to want to get, but make sure that you're on a hero that you're not expecting to spend a huge amount of time farming with. Sometimes I notice I'll be on a hero that, let's take a Abaddon, for example. He's a hero that's generally played with this utility role, so you'd want to be getting like Vlads or Guardian Greaves or whatever on this hero. But let's say I'm playing a pub and I'm the highest ranked and I'm in the off lane and my allies seem awful and they're just fighting and the carry doesn't look like he's going to carry. I'm not going to get utility items because sometimes you just have to step up to the plate and carry anyways. So you actually have to factor in a little bit. Do you want to be building your heroes so that you can get kills by yourself, or do you want to be building your heroes to support your allies? If your allies are garbage and there's nothing to support, don't build support items. If your allies are garbage, and you build support items to support them, and then you lose the game because they throw the game, in your head you can be like, oh, it's their fault. And it probably is. But also know that had you gone a different choice of items, maybe you could have carried yourself. It's a game that maybe you didn't have to lose. You know? Don't let yourself be bullied into this mindset of, oh, my allies can't carry me, therefore we lose. You know? Sometimes you gotta do the carrying yourself. Great example, Timbersaw. Likes to start off, you know, getting his Bloodstone, getting his Shivas, you know, those are generally like Agamins. Some combination of those will be like your main items. Then he starts getting other items, you know, like Lotus Orb. Great example of a utility item. It's very important for Timbersaw to get this if there's silence, you know? This is like an item that removes silence. It's one of the three. It's this, it's Yule's, Manta, BKB, I guess also. Generally, you want to build one of those. Diffusal is the last one. You want to build one of these items to remove silence if you need your hero to not be silenced.
Radiant's mid tower.
Timbersaw Lotus Orb's the best choice, but if there's no silence, maybe you don't get Lotus Orb. If you're super far ahead, maybe even consider getting like a high-level Dagon so you can actually just kill people very quickly, you know? Things like that, it might help you actually win the game. Alright, heavily physically defensive items, so we've got AC, Butterfly, and Shivas. For the most part, you don't really have to decide between those because you just pick the one that corresponds with your hero type. So Strength is AC, Intelligence is Intelligence is Shivas, and Agility is Butterfly. There is some mix and match, right? Sometimes with the Strength heroes, they'll find that Shivas works better on them. Sometimes with Agility, AC will be the option if there's like an Elder Titan. But for the most part, you can just pick the one that works better on your hero. Don't always rule out AC, by the way. I see a lot of people just automatically always getting Shivas on Strength heroes. So like, Pudge is a great example. Like, you get a Pudge, they just put the Shivas on him. But there's some games where if you're a Pudge building either one of those, by the way, then you're doing pretty well. And if you're this Pudge going around with like a huge amount of flesh heaps, sometimes the AC is the way to go. You can actually right click with this hero once he starts to get like 200, 250 base damage. So don't automatically go to Shivas. In any case, though, it's worth a special mention. These all give huge amounts of physical damage, and then they also give, physical protection. Then they also give like some offensive capabilities. Actually, a decent amount of offense. They're not like pure offensive like the other items that are, but they're really good items for actually fighting because they provide both. You know. Offense and defense. And it's worth noting that there's a special synergy between each of these three items and Black King Bar. If you get those items, you're going to have a huge amount of resistance to everything during your BKB. You're going to be nearly immune to physical damage, and you're going to be immune to magical damage. Alright, so if you're playing a carry, in general, that's just like a combo that I go for on nearly every hero that I want to carry with. I'll get a BKB eventually, you know, and that's no surprise to most people. Most people know you get BKB, but also combo with one of those two items at some point, because that's just such an incredible combo to get a huge amount of physical protection and magical protection. It means that you can just shell out damage inside a battle. Now, it's worth mentioning that like BKB, where BKB slows down your farm, these items, they actually don't slow down your farm that much. They actually, all of them are actually pretty good in battle offensive potential, but you still can't build them first because all of them have awful build-ups. They give you not very much till they're completely completed, and they all have very big components involved. So these items still aren't your first choice. You usually want to get like core items done, and then get your BKB or get one of these items, and then you can move into whatever else, your luxury stuff. Moon Shard. It's like Boots of Travel 2, you get it last whenever money is no object. You do not, it's pretty much always a wrong choice to get this as an actual item. If you want damage, Mjolnir's going to give you generally more in almost every case. And if you just want like overall fighting, Assault Cuirass is generally a very good choice. Or Butterfly. Moonshard is rarely the item to go to because it's like a pure damage item, but that does not even give you as much damage as most of the other pure damage items. Okay, choice of boots. Now the classic question that everyone's used to is phase boots or power treads. There's a lot of heroes where different players will get phase boots or power treads. Like, I think the classic question is if you're playing a Templar Assassin, do you get phase boots or power treads? And depending on the meta, I've had people tell me that one or the other is always the right choice. The simple truth is there are advantages and disadvantages to either ones, but what you need to factor in when making your decision. How much does your hero value attack speed? In my opinion, Power Treads is pretty much like the right choice for Templar Assassin, because that hero values attack speed a lot. But, you know, other questions. How much does your hero value move speed? Templar Assassin also values that a huge amount, which is why it's a tricky question, okay? Cost, they're relatively similar, close enough, you know, 90 gold difference that's you can't really decide based on that. You generally do want to get one of them. If your hero does right-clicking stuff, these both give incredibly cost-efficient bonuses, you know? 9 of an attribute and 25 attack speed is a lot. Similarly, 24 damage is a lot for the 800, 900 gold they cost, okay? Both of those, the 24 damage, let's just like a quick comparison. This is commonly considered like one of the most cost-effective damages in a game, because it is, you know, it gives this crit, which is very cost-effective, and also gives 30 damage. Now, this is 30 damage at 2,120, versus phase, which is 24 damage for 840, right? Technically, I'm calling it 840 because you already have the 400 in boots. Extremely high gold per damage. So, and similarly, power treads, very good stats. Okay? So generally you'll want one of them. I think the best way is a lot of times just to play with them both and see which one works out for you. Power treads, stat switching, something that's talked about a lot. I'd say sometimes maybe overrated in terms of how much of an overall difference it will make in your gameplay. It does make a difference, but it's very rare that you will lose a game and think, damn, if I had only power tread switched a little bit more, I would have, you know what I mean? You do it if you are like doing something where you are out on your own and you can get the extra mana with no extra risk of dying or whatever. So the classic example is anti-mage while blinking, switching to intelligence to get a little bit more mana right before blinking. Okay, arcane boots and tranquil boots, generally these are gotten on heroes when there's not, like the heroes that get these two generally don't have a whole lot of other choice. And then boots of travel. Boots of travel is bad stats for the gold, right? Like, this should be obvious. I feel like this should be obvious. It gives no stats, and it costs the most of all of the ones. But you'll occasionally see people, like, getting it first because of this horrible influence Merlini. Now, don't get me wrong. Merlini, I think, is a phenomenal player. And for what it's worth, he used to occasionally go boots of travel first on heroes like Zeus. Heroes that no one else went boots of travel first. But he hasn't done that in years. And people just have this feeling that Merlini always goes boots of travel first on every hero, which he doesn't. And so they'll do this, and then they'll get boots of travel first on a hero, like, and wonder why that hero, they'll get like boots of travel first Terrorblade, and then be like, man, Terrorblade's such a weak hero, because, you know, they're wasting so much gold. You're 2,000 gold behind on no stats. And that's compared to other boots that give you the most cost-effective stats in the whole game, right? This is almost always the best choice as your last set of boots. Whenever you have nothing else to upgrade, you know, you upgrade your phase boots into power treads. You upgrade, your phase boots into boots of travel. You upgrade your power treads into boots of travel. You can get moon shard. You can get boots of travel too. Don't rush it. The only heroes you rush it on, they all have explicit synergy. They'll have something like Tinker who can travel both ways. So this ends up serving as also a regen item, like the fastest regen item, the fountain itself, you know? Or Ember, very similar concept there, you know? Common theme in Dota is deciding between chase and fight, like, and how to build your hero to which one of those goals. Obviously you want both, but you can't get both initially, so you have to choose one or the other, right? So, common example is your Templar Assassin. Which do you go first? Do you go Blink Dagger, or do you go Deso, right? So, Deso's gonna be obviously fight. It allows you to kill things faster, fight better, whereas chase will be the Blink Dagger. If someone's weaker than you, that's gonna be what allows you to actually get the kill instead of just damaging them or them running away safely, right? Now, for whatever reason, I find most people just going to chase first, just maxing out on chase and not worrying about fight, and that doesn't work if you're weaker than the enemy, okay? Like, if the enemies are all much stronger than you, what's the point of blinking on top of them with Templar Assassin? Okay? Ideally, you're much stronger than them, and then you get a lot of chase. So, I would propose that, in general, a good strategy is to get a lot of fight, and then once you're way stronger, start working on your chase. And so, you might get the Deso first. The other thing that's really important to understand with that concept is that if you get the fight first, fight allows you to kill creeps faster, always. Whereas a Blink Dagger is not going to make you kill creeps faster, mostly. You know, maybe you can move around from the camps, but it's a little more subtle versus just, like, attacking twice and killing the whole creep wave, right? That's really important because a lot of times I'll see people, their whole team builds nothing but chase, and then they're able to get some pickoffs, but anytime it's a 5-on-5 fight, they just lose. Certain carry players that are very successful build nothing but fight. Like Arteezy's a big example of this, and then he'll get chased way later once he's super far ahead, and that's just the way that he ends up getting so far ahead of people. That obviously applies to things, not just items. So like a good example would be like Storm Spirit. His stun would be like chase. It's gonna allow him to actually get kills, whereas his static remnant would be more fight. That's gonna allow him to do more damage, more DPS, farm faster, that sort of thing. So, you know, years ago, the most common build on a Storm Spirit was to max out his passive and then get 3 points in his vortex, and then get his static remnant leveled up last, because a static remnant doesn't even like scale that well in terms of level 1 to level 4 damage. But it was just found that getting the static remnant maxed much quicker means that you're going to get more farm, means that you're going to get to the point where you have all of them leveled quicker, like that level 14 where everything's all leveled. You know, you're going to get to that point quicker. So keep that in mind when deciding between chase and fight. You generally want fight first, then chase if you're ahead. And defensive support items, you generally are going to want at least one of these if you're support. And you kind of pick which one based on the matchup. But Ghost Scepter, Glimmer Cape, Force Staff, you could kind of call Solar Crest one. These are items that are going to make you have some ability to escape if the opponent decides to just come and clown on you. You know, it's not so much, it's not like a Guardian Greaves where it just makes your team fight better. It just is it's like a selfish, like, make you not die. Now, generally, you can get away with just one, but you have to pick the right one, okay? So, like, Ghost Scepter, very good against right-clicking heroes, but they can't be right-clicking heroes that have a diffusal. Right? So like Ursa, not so great against him. Ricky, not so great against him. Phantom Lancer, not so great against him. But it might be good versus like a Sven. Or it's rare to see that on some like Luna. Like even though they could get a diffusal, rare to see it. Force Staff, these are heroes that have a way of getting on top of you but not stunning you. So like Phantom Assassin's the biggest example of this, where if you put a little bit more space, it's not a lot. It's only 600, but if you put a little bit more space, helps a lot. Glimmer Cape almost is just the default. I mean, Invis is so good, and the thing to realize that is a lot of these heroes that do solo kills don't pack dust. Like, it's gonna cost their carry or whoever, like their Slark or something, one extra inventory slot. And just makes you invisible, you know? The problem is you have to somehow escape. You know, it's not, I mean, it's a few seconds, but you can usually escape out of it. And, you know, Solar Crest, not really the same because it doesn't let you escape, but makes you markedly more tanky, and, you know, putting it on your allies can be helpful, and putting it on your enemies can be very helpful. Generally, this is not the choice unless you have some sort of particular synergy, like getting, well, you know, the cheaper Medallion of Courage, but like this on Visage, for example, or Vengeful Spirit, where it's gonna let you roche. You know, they do let you roche faster, too. That's like another added bonus. But this can be a big deal in a battle if you put this on a hero. This is a debuff that really hurts the enemy. Missing 30% and minus 10 damage. It's like a Slardar, you know? Alright, removing silence. There's a few different items that can do this. BKB, Manta, Diffusal Blade, Ewel's, and Lotus Orb.
Radiant's top tower
we just touched on those. The important thing to realize is that it's not excusable to have your hero be silenced in a game. This is one of those things that is one of the most easily counterable things in Dota. Nearly every hero is going to get one of those anyways. But if not, you know, you need to be building towards it. And the important thing is to understand not only that sometimes heroes have silence, But also, there's a lot of heroes that
getting
just
the
build
business.
silence. Even if they don't have a silence naturally, they'll be building silence on their hero anyways.
Guess what's happening to
Sometimes.
Dire's bottom
Big
tower?
examples like Storm, you have to
Can't
just
do
be
nothing
prepared
about
for the
Dire's
silence.
structures
You have
right
to think
now.
about it as a silenced hero, or a silence hero. The other thing is to realize that there are multiple
Dire's
ways
bottom tower
to
got
counter the
blown to
silence.
bits.
So, let's say
Radiant's
you're a
mid
hero
tower's getting banged up.
like Terrorblade, for example, who's gonna be building this Manta style, and the opponent has a Storm mid.
Radiant's mid tower's coming
Manta style's a
apart.
little slow. I mean, it's a good item, and you're gonna be building it guaranteed anyways. But maybe try out a game or two where you rush Diffusal first in that matchup, because Terrorblade's a great example, because the difference between you being silenced and not silenced is the difference between you dying versus you purging yourself, sundering, slowing him with your Diffusal again, and then killing him. You know, like, they're gonna be most of the way out of mana. The Storm might have used a lot of his mana to zip you, so he's got nothing left in the bank, and then, or in the tank, and then you hit him a couple times, you purge him. So try out these alternative things, like get a Diffusal instead of Manta sometime. Or if you're a hero, an intelligence hero that gets Yules, maybe try out the Lotus Orb. Like this hero, maybe a lot of times will build Yules, but maybe try a Lotus Orb, or vice versa. If you tried out the Lotus Orb, try Yules. This one has the added these two have the added bonus of they can remove stuff on allies. If it's removing stuff on allies, you can actually remove more things than just silence, but if you're stunned yourself, you can't remove it. So generally, we just think of it as just silence is the main thing you can remove. The other thing is, if you have these items, you need to hold them. You need to have their cooldowns be ready for when you get silenced. Like Manta's the biggest example. If you're an anti-mage and you're up versus the Storm, you just don't use your Manta ahead of time. And because if you get silenced and killed because of that sucks, you know. You can generally afford to hold on to your cooldown more than they can afford to just never go on you. Alright, another general point I want to make is that when choosing items, and this is especially true if you're going to try to be creative and you're going like items that are not standard, you need to choose items based on the stats. The stats are more important than the ability. Both are important, and ideally you have a hero where both are useful. You know, like that's generally every hero that has a common item, it works well with the stats and the ability. But stats are first. Stats are more important than the ability. Okay, so certain abilities work well on every hero. Scythe of Ice, it's an amazing ability. It's pseudo stun for 3.5 seconds. But the stats don't match every hero, so you don't get Scythe of Ice on every hero. You get it now. If an item has an ability that's really good for your hero, that's whenever you'll see these items as situational pickups. I could see Scythe of Ice being a situational pickup on any hero in Dota, okay? But not the most common. Another great example, Orchid, for very similar reasons. I see that being picked on tons of heroes that can't use the int well, and it's not as effective because they don't get this huge damage. They miss out on, look at all this, they miss out on 25 damage worth of damage on this item, and that's a lot, okay? Last example of that that's really big is Echo Saber. You know, the ability, the double attack is great. The slow on attack is also great. But if you're a hero that does not need any mana, then this item's not going to be useful on you. Every hero that builds this Echo Saber needs mana desperately. Every hero that builds it successfully, I should say. You see Tinies, you see Slarks, you see, I don't even know, whatever else, they all need mana, okay? So, keep that in mind. Refresher Orb. Great as like a late game thing, pretty much never the first choice because it just doesn't give any stats, but great as a late game thing for a second ult. Important to note that you should get this item if you can hold it on your hero. There's a lot of this like stuff that I hear people talking about where they get Refresher and put it in the base, or get Necro and put it in the base and use it to split push, and it kind of works, but if you want to do that you have to have Boots of Travel, because you're going to boost your travel home, refresh your ult, and boost your travel back in. And just know that it's harder to do than it sounds. The Necro one I wouldn't even try. Like putting the Necro on a courier and then having the courier walk over to you, that will never work. So never think of that as a viable option, in my honest opinion. Refresher though, it's generally you want to pick it if you think you can actually use it on your hero. So like Tidehunter, where it's actually worth it to keep it on your hero because you want 2 in battle ults, you know. The only other hero that I would actually use it on for like outside of battle refresh are like odd examples where you need your ult to fight, but it's a long duration ult and has a really long cooldown, which there aren't a lot of examples of that, but Terrorblade's like a really big one because A, he actually has the possibility of getting that much farm, and B, that's what Metamorphosis is. Necro Book, good item. great. It's like generally one of those items that you need your team to work with you. So generally what people can use it for, though, is it can be used kind of similar to a Dagon, where it lets you get solo kills, but the hero has to have very good disables. So like Beastmaster is the first thing that comes to mind, but also like some interesting ones. Like if the hero has good disables, you don't always think of Puck, Lich. A lot of these like int heroes that have pretty good disables, but just lacking in damage a lot. Try it out sometime. It's pretty good. Puck's a big one. Alright, so that about covers everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. I think it's important to emphasize that my goal in this video is not to talk about every item in Dota, but to instead talk about the items that I think have interesting points of trivia to them that not everyone knows, and also to talk about these items in groups that make logical sense, that maybe you hadn't grouped them together before, you know, to put them into groups so that you can think of different items as replacements for each other, stuff like that. There's a lot of items that I didn't even mention, and a lot of them just don't have a whole lot of nuance to them. Like Armlet, it's a good item, gives a lot of damage. Maybe you want some way to restore your health if you want to use this to farm. There's nuance to every item in Dota, right? Like you could, if an Armlet user will tell you how important it is to make sure you get which one of these in the right order. Like if you're low on health, you get the Helm of Iron Will first versus Blaze, whatever. It's just these ones that I did cover, I felt were the most important. We only have a limited amount of time. This is the High Yield Dota chapter. Okay? Thanks for tuning in. If I have more stuff, I might end up adding it in future videos, especially because items are one of the most common things to be added to Dota. Alright. Thanks for watching, guys. Next chapter.